Hello, and welcome to a nice Automation Studio tutorial. Today, I'll be walking you through our YouTube training automation. Before we get started in Automation Studio, make sure you create a blank Excel worksheet. We'll need this for later on during the process. Save it with whatever name you'll remember it, and store it somewhere that you know how to have access to it. Next, we're going to go on to creating our variables. So click this plus button right up next to the variables, and let's get started. We'll start out with our simple variables. These ones we aren't going to have to change anything to, so we'll just be naming them. For starters, you'll need date underscore time. You'll need likes. We're going to want this one, we're going to say it's test underscore likes. Then we need one for each video. In this case, we're going to do 5, so this one will be video underscore 1. This one will be video underscore 2. This one will be 3 and 4 and 5. We're also going to need one for our views. So let's add that here. Perfect. Now we have all of our basic variables. Next, we're going to want to create a timer. For this case, we're going to do a complex variable, click General, and click Timer. We can just call it timer so we remember what it does. And for the interval, this is how long it is. Let's put 5 seconds, just so we have something put in there to start. Next, we want to create 2 other complex variables. These are going to be rows. So this one we'll put as temp underscore row, and this next one will be row format. Perfect. Now we have one final one that we have to make, and this one is a list variable. But it's a complex variable, and it's going to be a row. And this we'll call list of rows. Perfect. Now that you have all those, we can get on to doing our actual automation. So, our first step is going to be actually going in and opening YouTube, because we want the bot to do that for us automatically. So, we go open YouTube to remember what it does. And in our steps, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to execute command line. So, to save time, if you just type that in up here, you'll see everything comes up. And under commands, execute command line. So we're going to want to take that one and drag it down into our workflow. Now that it's down there, you need to find the browser you're going to use. So to do that, you can type it in your search bar at the bottom of your screen. In this case, I'm going to use Microsoft Edge. So if you right click on it, you can see open file location. And when you do that, once you have it pulled up, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click copy path. Once you do that, you want to paste that in right there. Now, for starters, we're going to delete at the start and the end little quotation marks because it won't work if those are there. Now, we need to set the parameters. In this case, these are going to be our videos. So, we do video 1. Perfect. Now that that's set, we can move on to the next step. So, let's pull that down here and drag this. Now, over each transition, we're going to add the timer. We're going to put a lapse time. So you just click on this in the middle and drag a lapse time in there. Perfect. Next, we're going to want to go through the function of actually going and getting the views and getting the likes. So, before we can do that, we actually have to go on YouTube and we have to pull up those current views and likes. So we're going to have to use screen elements. So, you don't have to use the same YouTube video. That's perfectly fine. You can go in and find a random one and use it for these. It'll work for every video. So, I'm going to pull one up in Microsoft Edge. Now that you have a video pulled up, we're going to click plus on the screen elements. When you do that, it'll open up the YouTube page. For views, you're just going to want to highlight it and click. And as you'll see, the red and blue box comes and it shows it there. Let's rename this to views so we remember what it is. And next, we're going to change the selector. Now, I've already done that for you, so just make sure you copy and paste what it says right here. You should have access to it somewhere in your training guide. Next, we're going to save and move on to the next one. So, once again, we're going to click plus on screen elements, and we're going to go on the likes right here. Now, as you can see, it'll capture the likes, and it shows this ID. Now, we're going to want to use the selector that I created instead. So, make sure you copy it and paste it right into here. And we have to check off multiple instances. And we specifically want the first recognized instance. Now, we're going to change this to likes. And as you can see, when we click locate, it'll highlight both of these because the selector could be used for likes and dislikes. However, we only want the likes here, which is why we chose first recognized. And as you can see, it's located successfully. Now, before we save everything, we want to come up here and we want to change the URL. Because for this, we want to make sure that it works on any YouTube video we do. So you're going to want to delete this and put an asterisk. So this says that anything that comes after youtube.com, it'll work for that video. Perfect. Now we click save, and we're done with our screen element portion. Now we can move on to getting the actual views and likes now that we have those there. So for starters, we just need the assign function. So we're going to need two of them. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be assigning into our likes and into our views. So let's put those there. Now, what are we assigning? We're going to go into our screen elements and we're going to get the likes. The inner HTML is going to go into the likes. So you want inner HTML. For views, we're going to use the inner text. Perfect. Now that we have that, we need to specifically get a value from likes. So, to do that, we're going to use the assign function once again. And ultimately, we're going to assign this into our test likes variable. And in here, what we're going to be doing is we need to get the attribute from our likes. So if you come in here and go to likes, we need to get attribute. Now, specifically, it is the aria label. And what this does is it grabs the value of the likes that was hidden within the HTML that the likes shows normally. Not too difficult now, right? Next, we need to get the date and time. So we're going to assign, and we need to convert the date and time to text in this case. So convert date and time to text. But what date and time? Now you could click and pick a time here, but what we want to do is we actually want to get the current date and time. And we're going to assign this into our date time variable. Now that that's done, only two more steps in this one, and then we'll move on to the next. So, for this one, what we're going to do is we need to use another assign function. Now, what we're doing here is we're going to extract a prefix before the character text. So, the reason we're doing this is because the way YouTube stores the information is it adds the word views and likes after both the views and the likes. Now, in this case, we just want the numbers. So, for views, you just put the letter V, and we're going to assign this right back into the views variable. So what this does is it takes that number of views and leaves us with just the number instead of the number and the word views, because we don't want that. So we're going to do the exact same thing now for likes. So we want to extract a prefix before a specific character. Now we're going to only use test likes from here on out because the likes has all of that yucky information we don't want. So once again, this time we put an L for likes. And now that that's done, we're done with this step and we can move on to our next. So bring that arrow over, and remember, we want to put the timer in. So take that elapsed time, put it in there, and with this is going to be our move to Excel step. Perfect. Now that we're here, we're going to be using mostly variables during this. So for starters, go into the list row And what we want to do is we want to remove all elements. So take remove all, drag it over. And we're going to do the same thing for temp row and row formats. So for temp row, we're going to remove all. And for row formats, we're going to remove all. Now that that's done, we can go into the actual next step, which we want to take the row formats and we want to add 3 strings to it. So add element at the end of list. We're going to do that 3 times, and each time we're going to write in the word string. Now, this is setting up the format, so when we go into Excel, it'll have all 3 of the information, the date and time, the likes, and the views, all in different rows, which is very important. Now, we move on to what we need to do in the temp row. So, for the temp row, we want to add an element at the end of the list. In this case, we're going to put it down 3 times, and we're going to put in our 3 variables that we're using. So, for starters, it'll be our date and time. Next, we'll do our likes. And finally, we'll finish up with our views. Next, we're going to add the temp row into our list of rows. So we add an element at the end of the list. We're going to take the values of temp row. And now that that's in there, we can append the rows to Excel. So, as you can see, if you just type in append, it'll show up right here. Append rows to Excel. Now, remember why I said we needed to know that Excel path? You're going to put the variable of our Excel path in here. So, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a new variable. You're going to call it Excel underscore path. And in here, you're going to take the value of the Excel sheet that you'll be using. So for me, if I go in and take mine, all you do is you click on it, make sure you're on the home and click copy path. Now that that's there, you can paste it in and take the quotes out. Now that the quotes are out, you have the Excel path. So you go in and you add it right here. And on the sheet names. Now in this case, I named the sheets after what video it'll be. So in this case, it would be video underscore 1. Now, the data format, we're going to use the temporary list. The rows is going to be our row format, because that's how we need to format it. And the values is going to be from our list of rows. And now we're done here. And we can move on to the final step in this specific workflow. Don't forget to add the timer. And this is going to be the close the tab. Once you're on this one, all you're going to do is you're going to drag this over, and you're going to want to type in close tab. Now specifically, we're going to go by URL. And in this case, since it's video 1, you put in video 1 because the URLs will match. Perfect. And now that you're done, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this workflow. So now there's 5 of them, 1 for each video. In order to duplicate a workflow, you go into workflows, click the dots on the far right, and click duplicate. Now, every time you duplicate it, it'll show up as a copy. So we're just going to do this until we have 5 of them. Perfect. And now that we have 5, we're going to rename them to each video. So we'll rename this to be video 1. This one will be video 2. This one will be video 3. And so on and so forth. Now, once we're done with this, we're going to have to go through and change a few things. Because as you know, we currently have it set up so all of these would be going to video 1's link. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that they go to the right video. So, in order to do that, we're going to go in and just change those steps. So if you come into video 2 here, we're going to change this to video 2. We're also going to go to the close tab, and we're going to change that to video 2. And if you come down to move to Excel, make sure you change where it says video 1 to video 2. And now that you've done that, this one is all set for video 2. Now make sure you go through and do the same things for video 3, 4, and 5. And once you've completed that, you've completed the first part of our YouTube training automation. I hope you got everything right, and I'll see you in the next one, where we go into macros in Excel and actually run it and see the final product.